This episode is sponsored by Squarespace. It's thanks to their support that our videos like this and more are possible. We just launched our new website on Squarespace and are really impressed. You can check out the link in the description. If you need a website yourself, get 10% off by going to squarespace.com/makeeverything. Foundation is a cosmetic that's used to improve or complement the attributes of the skin. It can cover flaws and adjust the color and texture of a person's face. To make my own, I'll first need a pigment, and I'm going to utilize one of the earliest pigments ever used. Made from red and yellow soils, ochre. The distinctive red sands of the American Southwest is caused by high concentrations of iron in the soil, which also makes it perfect for making cosmetics. So, I'm going to collect some soil. The Arizona soil will give me a nice red color, but I'll need a few more tones if I want to accurately match my skin tone. For a white color, oftentimes zinc oxide or titanium oxide are used. However, I didn't have any luck sourcing these ingredients. Fortunately, I have two other options for white I was able to source while in Utah. The calcite Cody found for me, which is commonly known as chalk, and a white clay that was actually sourced near the Redmond salt mine that we toured earlier this year. Lastly, a yellow pigment would really help balance the tone out to best match my skin. Similar to the red ochre, yellow ochre is formed by a different form of iron oxide. It should be possible to chemically convert the red ochre into yellow, but first I'll need to purify the red as much as possible. I went through and strained some of the soil and got just the finest powder. After that, I figured the largest contaminant is probably gypsum because we literally collected this 10 feet away from the gypsum mine where I got the gypsum. So then I figured to remove the gypsum, it's slightly water soluble, and it actually has a unique characteristic that the colder the water is, the more soluble it becomes. So I took some of the soil and soaked it in water, put it in the fridge, and let it cool as much as possible, agitated it and let it sit and continue to do that. Then strained it out, and that should leave mostly just the iron oxide. I was able to get this large crystal of gypsum, of the iron oxide. So that was definitely a major contaminant. So this is basically what's in your drywall. Might save that for a different project. So after that, I then baked it under a Bunsen burner to burn off any other impurities that might be there, fully convert everything to the iron oxide that's red. And this is the end result of that. And then if I compare that to the original iron oxide, you can see that removing that has made it quite a bit brighter. So this here is the yellow ochre in a rock form. I can crush this up and get a small amount. I want to try and convert this red into some additional yellow. It's actually pretty difficult. Going the other way around is actually very simple. You just take this and then heat it to a certain temperature and it'll convert into red ochre. But to go the other direction, it takes a few chemical steps. You actually have to turn it into an iron salt and then precipitate it using an alkali solution. First step is let's try some acid. So I have hydrochloric acid, sulfuric acid, and citric acid. And theoretically, each of these will form a different iron salt. So I'm not a chemist. This is probably really dumb for me to be messing with it. And definitely don't recommend doing it on your own. There's a spider in the shot. Then by reacting them with a base like soda ash in an oxygen-rich environment, theoretically, the yellow ochre will precipitate. However, that didn't work out, and I was left with a mostly white powder at the end. While I try to figure out what went wrong, I'll eventually need an oil for my foundation. This time, I'm going to try making castor oil. Made from the seeds of the castor oil plant, fans of the TV show Breaking Bad may recognize these seeds for their use as a plot device because of their toxicity.
Castor beans. We are going to process them into ricin. Ricin beans.
Just ingesting 4 to 8 seeds will supposedly kill an adult, although cases of such poisoning are rare. The heating process the seeds undergo while being pressed denatures and deactivates the toxic enzyme, leaving the resulting oil to be harmless. For my needs, I attempted to grow these tropical plants myself. Going through the process, they ended up feeling very alien. They sprouted super quickly, continuing to grow much quicker than every other plant, and then on them grew these strange alien-looking pods, which is where the seeds would eventually be produced. Unfortunately, these tropical plants didn't end up growing quite quick enough to produce any seeds before a fall frost killed them off. However, while we were in LA this fall, I noticed that these toxic alien plants were pretty much everywhere in the Hollywood Hills, so while we were there, I went through and collected as much as I could. That's the spider. Back home, I removed them from their pods and ran them through the oil press to extract their oils. Now that I have some castor oil, I also want to make some blush or rouge to add a little color to my complexion. Historically, several different red dyes have been used to add red to one's complexion, from strawberries, beets, to safflower. I grew all three this summer. The safflower requires a fairly complex process to extract the red color from a mostly yellow flower. Caroline set me up with some directions to try and follow. First, I had to rinse the crushed petals over and over again until it no longer produced a yellow color. This took almost a week. Next, to extract the remaining red pigment from the petals, they are soaked into several soda ash solutions. These solutions are then combined and have an acid added to them. Several strips of cloth are soaked in the solution, absorbing the red pigment. Then, they are soaked in another soda ash solution, removing the red pigment, which you then neutralize with an acid. I mixed the end result with some of my clay to give it more body, but the limited amounts of pigments I extracted produced very little color in the end. Fortunately, I had the two other backup options, so I chopped and boiled the strawberries and beets to extract their red color. I boiled the liquid down and used a vacuum chamber to concentrate the solution as much as possible without burning it. Then, I mixed in some of my clay to form a dry mix. While I let that finish drying out into a powder, I think I figured out what I did wrong my first attempt at converting the red ochre to the yellow ochre. A fair amount of gypsum is still left in the ochre, which itself will react with the acids and then also precipitate. Secondly, when I bubbled the air through the soda ash mix, the carbon dioxide in the air combined with the soda ash to produce baking soda, which has a much lower solubility than soda ash. So that's what caused a lot of the white powder to precipitate. So I went back to some of the instructions I found, and there's a variety of different ways to do this. What I did differently this time is after I reacted the iron salt with the soda ash, just let it sit on a warm hot plate overnight. Then after it had time to react, then I added the bubbler and bubbled it for another 6 hours or so. And then I strained the results, and I got kind of a brown result as this, which I feel is caused by some of it turning into yellow ochre and some of it turning back into red ochre, which not ideal. These are all the colors I have to work with. This is clay we collected in Utah, and we have my attempt at yellow ochre, which is more of a brown, and the red ochre I purified, and then some of the actual yellow ochre. So I didn't really end up making too great of a yellow, but I ended up making this yellow, which is iron chloride. So this is an option I could use. It's a little difficult to use because as you apply it, you have to kind of anticipate how much of a chemical burn and how red that's going to make your hand and compensate with the tone of it. So probably not the best option, but it is a yellow. I think I'll avoid that. All right, I'm pretty pale, so I'm gonna start with white. A little bit of brown, some red. Let's see how that looks. So I'm hoping this clay works. I can grind it in a little better. I wish I had a tan that good. White. This could be hard. It's a lot of white. But I think this will work for the darker shade. Now it's just a matter of adding castor oil. Oh, this got dark. I also don't know what consistency foundation normally is. Yeah. Now going darker should be easier. Yeah, that provides a pretty decent contrast. Kind of chunky, probably kind of thick. They're probably gonna dry like clay, so they might not last very long, but I think it works. I assume. I don't really know much about makeup, but that's why I'm not gonna be the one who really tries these out. And to finish making all of my cosmetics, I'm gonna get some professionals to assess how good I did, because I don't know anything about makeup. With a few decent options for different colors of foundation, I can now go back to wrapping up my blush powder. Starting first with the darkest pigment I was able to produce, which was from the beets. So I have some of the chalk, and try adding it to this and see if I can make a blush powder. All right, so that actually worked pretty good. It's a little purple, but I think it's actually make a pretty good blush. Just to add a little bit of color to your cheeks. And then if you want more of a cream-based one, I have strawberry, which is a little bit more actual pink. A little wet still, but we add that there. And then last of all, I have some of the leftover cochineal that we extracted for the lipstick. We'll just add some of that to some chalk, and we'll get a third option. I don't know if you count this an option. All right, so here's what the cochineal turned out. Surprisingly very similar. A little bit of red to add to your complexion. All right, so now I've been able to come up with a few different tones of foundation and a few different blushes. All those ended up kind of purple. It's kind of weird. All right, so safflower didn't really turn out too well. It's supposed to be red, turned out yellow. And kind of ironic that the red thing turned out yellow when the yellow thing I was trying to make didn't turn out all that yellow with the ochre. But I did not grow all that safflower for nothing, because it at least makes a decent cup of tea. Thanks again to Squarespace for making this episode possible. Whether you need a domain, website, or online store, make your next move with Squarespace. Create a beautiful website with their all-in-one platform, no coding experience required. They have a ton of templates to choose from, so you don't have to start your designs from scratch. Squarespace provides award-winning 24/7 customer support, and it's simple to set up or transfer an existing domain to Squarespace, so all your websites live in one place. We just transferred our website to Squarespace and really love how easy it is to use and how great our content looks on their platform. Start your new free trial today at squarespace.com/makeeverything to get 10% off your first purchase. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to subscribe and check out other content we have covering a wide variety of topics. Also, if you've enjoyed these series, consider supporting us on Patreon. We are largely a fan-funded channel and depend on the support of our viewers in order to keep our series going. Thanks for watching.